And one of the things that I think is less than satisfactory in some of the economic models is the assumption that all these factors of production, the capital and the labour, will just get reallocated to better uses. It would be nice if that did happen, but it doesn't always happen as easily as some of the models assume. So what I've talked about so far is I've talked about thinking about the monetary costs and the monetary benefits, but there might also be other costs and benefits that are not so easy to quantify. And so one of the arguments was used initially in supporting the car industry about 60 years ago was that it was really important that Australia had a manufacturing capability, because if for defence reasons we had to be able to build a tank or build a fighter jet or something or other, or a submarine or whatever, and so having some sort of manufacturing base increased the probability of doing that. This can still be an important thing to try and measure, but it might be really hard to measure it because you don't know. Increasing the security of national security or whatever is a very nebulous idea, and it's not easy to measure. But economists can still try and measure some of these things. And there are lots of examples of this. So for example, in things like workers' compensation cases, economists get dragged into the courts to say, well, what is the value of the pain and suffering that people who have suffered a work injury might be subjected to? We can't quantify. We can try and put a dollar value on losing your leg, but it's not that easy thing to do. But economists still have a go at that. And the environment's another example of something where we economists try and put values on, and they call it just the existence value. So I'm sitting here in Canberra, I'm talking to you, but it might make me happy to think there's the Great Barrier Reef up there in Queensland. I might be willing to pay some amount of money to know that it's there. If I want to go and visit it, I might never go and visit it, but for the option of maybe one day visiting it. And economists will find ways of trying to value what people think about the value of something like the Great Barrier Reef or Kosciuszko National Park, which is, I guess, for us something that's more immediate. We do go there. I guess the attitudes that the industry expects and the professional ethics are all because economists are dealing with these issues that are really, they can be very contentious and very socially divisive and have important implications for individuals' well-being. So I might sit here and say, well, let's close General Motors at Elizabeth. It's not me losing my job. It means a lot to the person who's about to lose their job. So I want to make sure that the models I'm working with, the data I'm using, is the best possible. It's unlikely to be perfect because measuring these things is always really difficult, but I want to make it clear that I'm doing the best I can. And we want to make sure that the models that are being developed, and there are these huge models that are pretty much impenetrable, but the people who are working with them, they work day in, day out with them, and that they're doing the best they can to make sure that those models are accurate and that they're not letting personal prejudices get in the way of the results. So it's all of that can be really very tricky, and I think you can find yourself arguing from different points of view. I had two of our former students who now work in the Treasury, the Commonwealth Treasury, came to speak to our third year class last year, and one of them had spent 2 years of her life, working life, as part of the team that designed the mining tax. And the other one, he was now helping to write the legislation to repeal the mining tax. So they're both using their economic skills with difference from different political sides of the argument. Professionalism and presentation are really important, because working as an economist, unless you're working in an environment like the Commonwealth Treasury, you're probably not surrounded by economists. So you've got to be able to communicate. And I think one of the things that economists have often done badly is communicating with non-specialists. They've got to be able to explain the concepts that they want to get across in a way that everyone can understand. So learning how to communicate clearly, both in a written and a verbal form, is a really important skill for an economist. And being aware that some of the assumptions you're making about the world will not be the assumptions that other people make. So my example earlier about pay, low pay, well, if you say to a group of healthcare workers, well, that's just supply and demand, bad luck, they might not be wildly receptive and happy to hear you speak. So you need to be able to present your arguments in ways that that will help people to understand where you're coming from, and that's really, really important. I think the attributes you need to develop to be a successful economist are, I think, a real enthusiasm and interest in the area, and an ability to make logical, coherent arguments. You need to be able to spell out your assumptions clearly, and you need to be able to work with data. So learning how to work with data, and it doesn't necessarily have to be at a very sophisticated level. Some people who are economists spend their lives running econometric programs, but some people just need to be able to get out the data and present it in a coherent way. So talking to former students, and we all talk to former students now they come back and talk to us, and they're presenting arguments. So they're looking at things like the gender pay gap, and they need to be able to get out the data on the earnings of men, the earnings of women, the comparison, how it's changed over time. These are the sorts of things that the minister will want to read, not a complicated econometric program result that's sort of almost incomprehensible. So I would recommend a career in economics. I think it's fascinating, and there are many, many problems that economists are involved in and will continue to be involved in the future. If we look at the census data, the economists, people with economics degrees, are well paid compared to university graduates with a similar length of university degree. And so I would recommend you all the best for your future careers.